gone back to my school days. Hello everybody, let me introduce myself first of all and get your disappointment over that I'm not Rogue Best. Poor old indeed, yeah, poor old Rogue called me about an hour ago to say, Tim, I've got a dodgy stomach and I wouldn't be a pretty sight on stage. And he said, can you jump in for me? I'm always happy to jump for Rogue. That sounds slightly wrong, doesn't it? But I'm particularly happy today, and I'll tell you why, because I love synchronicity. 61 years ago at this moment, I was standing outside of the Odeon Cinema in Southport, queuing to go and see the Beatles, Jerry and the Pacemakers, Billy J Kramer and the Foremost, for 8 and 6. Those were indeed the days, magical times, and I'm so happy. I could not be happier. That 10-year-old boy in here, his heart is pumping, because that day had a huge effect on my life, and I couldn't be happier today to be able to talk with one of those guys who were up on that stage and led me into the strange world I ended up walking in. Can you please take the roof off this beautiful building with a huge welcome to one of the biggest stars from the Merseybeat days, Mr. Billy J Kramer.
How are you doing? Nice to see you all. Good to see you. Oh, right. I'll put this bottle of water out of the way.
Right, Billy. Well.
So what do you want to know?
Well, I'll tell you what I want to know.
You want to know a secret?
I will. I would like to go right back to the very start, and I would like to continue then and go right through the life to this present day and indeed into the future. But I thought a good starting point would be, can you tell us what your very earliest memory on this planet is?
You know, believe it or not, I remember my mother taking me out to the sidewalk and people were running into the streets screaming, "It's V Day." And I was around 3 or 4 years of age. I was born in 1943, as I'm sure you all know. And I remember that very vividly. And then I remember sort of like the trestle tables in the street when we had the Festival of Britain and the Queen, that kind of stuff.
Well, that's pretty cool memories, I have to say. You were born and bred whereabouts in Liverpool?
In Bootle.
In Bootle?
Yeah, where the bugs wear clogs.
And what are your memories of Bootle at that time? I mean, it's sort of being gentrified, I've heard.
Gentrified?
I think that's the term they use.
I don't know, you know, what I remember about Bootle, you know, things were so different then. I mean, we didn't have a car, we didn't have a telephone, there was no TV. You know, with the radio, my father played a lot of like Glenn Miller records and stuff like that, and there was a lot of kind of big band. The big band era was just slightly starting to fade then, but you know, he was into that. You know.
Did he grab you, that kind of music?
He you know, there was always music going on. I know that. There was always music going on, and I grew up there, and I went to Orrell Primary School, which was on Lernaker Lane, if anybody's from Bootle, they'll know that.
What was it like going to school? Did you take to it? I mean, instantly, were you...
No, I'm like most people, I couldn't wait to leave.
From day one?
From day one. Funny enough, I mean, I used to go into trouble because it was so close to where I lived. I remember like at first when I went to Orrell Primary School, and I had a break in the morning, and I walked home.
You thought you'd had it, you'd done it. Your schooling was over.
I thought it was lunchtime or something, and I walked home, and my mother said, "What are you doing here?" you better get back there, but I didn't, you know. And I was at Oral Primary School, and it was there when I first started to sing.
Oh, so were your talents recognised?
Yeah, well, when you say recognised, it was the choir master was a man called Mr. Bird, and he started playing the piano one day, and he said, right, don't stop singing, and he went around the classroom, and he heard me, and went, you're in the choir, you're in the choir. It was one of them things.
Yeah, but had you already been singing, I mean, at home, or?
No, I thought maybe I sang a bit at home, but not much. I was in the choir.
And what kind of songs were you singing at that point?
You know, I can't remember. That is gone. But I was in the choir. We used to wear these like maroon ties with a gold treble clef, and we did like choral contests. And should we start again? They just arrived. You haven't missed much. No. But we wore these like maroon ties with a gold treble clef, and we did competitions in like Formby and Southport and Blackpool.
Did you win?
We never won, but my mother always thought we were robbed, obviously, you know.
Where would we be without our mother? Yes.
And that was a nice experience.
Outside of school, what was your life like outside of school? I mean, what were you into? You know, comic books or?
Not so much. I was interested in soccer. You know, soccer.
Well, I have to ask which team.
Well, I always say I support both teams.
Yeah.
That's the safest thing to say.
Very well said. Yes.
You know, I mean, as long as they both do well, that concerns me.
Very sportsmanlike.
But yes, my life and then we used to. Oh, I mean, things were so different because when you think about it, we used to play soccer in the street in the winter and cricket in the street in the summer, and we stood around with cell phones like today. You know, times have changed.
There's a few of them out there. I can see.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's one going there.
You and yourself. Hitting your teen years, did you become a teen rebel?
Not really. I was a good kid, I think. I hate to say it, but I was a good kid.
You were a good kid.
Yeah. Maybe a bit mischievous, but I was basically a good kid. I never, never got in any bad trouble. You know?
Yeah.
That was it.
Any other interests outside of football? I mean, were you illustrator, drawing, writing, or anything?
Not really. No. I was interested in music. I did sing. I sang a lot.
Okay, now say you're interested in music. What were your inspirations then at that point? What was getting you? By the time you hit your teens?
By the time I got my teens, it started with the skiffle era.
Right.
Which was everybody. And, back then, it was very easy to form a skiffle group.
Now you say that, because I would be clueless how to form any kind of group.
Well, a skiffle group consisted of, let's face it, the bass player was a T-chest bass.
Yeah.
It was a T-chest with a broom handle for the bass, a washboard with steel cymbals, and an acoustic guitar. And that was how I first started.
Yeah.
Well, what happened was there was a kid at school.
With who? Where did that come from?
Well, what happened was that there was a kid who went to school called Billy Grant, I remember his name, and he had this guitar and he wasn't doing too well with it. I bought it from him. I bought it from him for £3, and I taught myself. I drove my parents crazy. I sat on the staircase, because it sounded good up there.
Did it come naturally to you?
No, it took a while. It took a while.
I say that because in 1963, inspired by you and everybody else who was bursting out of Liverpool, I bought a guitar and a book, Bert Wheaton's Playing a Day, which is great, except he didn't stipulate which day, and I'm still...
Well, I'll be honest with you, I couldn't afford the book.
You did?
I couldn't afford the book, but I taught myself the chords, the basic chords on the guitar, and then I got introduced to a kid down the street called Raymond Doherty, and his brother had brought him a Spanish guitar, and I used to go down, and he had a parlor in his house. We didn't have one, Ours was a smaller house. So
He had a what?
a parlour, a back room.
gosh.
So I used to go there, and right up at the end of it, I would swap. You know, if I'd found a chord that he didn't know, I'd show him, and he'd show me what it meant. And we started getting good, and we did like songs like the Everly Brothers, and but there was skiffle was the thing, was the first thing. But to me, it was an obvious thing after a while that something was going to happen.
Really?
To me, it was, it was like, it became like monotonous to me. All the songs sounded the same, and they were all like three chords. And then I started listening to Radio Luxembourg, and around about this time as well, there was a kid who lived opposite me called George Braithwaite, and his brother was a merchant seaman, and he called me one day, and I went over, and he played me Elvis Presley's record of Hound Dog and Don't Be Cruel. It was on 78. And I was like, wow,
You remember that moment?
I remember that moment.
Yeah.
And then, I think everybody will say the same thing. It was when I was listening to Luxembourg, and I heard that riff of Buddy Holly's, the introduction to That'll Be the Day, and that was it. That's how I...
What was it about that thing that grabbed you, still a young kid?
Well, I don't know. When you think about it now, it's very basic, but at the time it wasn't. It just grabbed me,
Yeah.
And I got into Buddy Holly. He had a big hit. That'll Be the Day. Oh boy, think it over. Peggy Sue. Peggy Sue got married. Peggy Sue got divorced.
How's she doing these days?
So I got into that. And I was listening to Luxembourg, and I got into people like Gene Vincent, Eddie Cochran, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, all these rock and roll people.
Along with the music, were you fashion conscious? I mean, how were you presenting yourself?
I wasn't that fashion conscious then, because I tell you that I hate to say this, but at the time we weren't able to afford to be fashionable. Things were pretty tough after World War II. There wasn't a lot going on. I started getting into it when I got older. I went from Oral Primary School to St. George of England.
Are these Catholic schools?
No, they weren't Catholic schools. And I went to St. George of England. They didn't have a choir there. They used to bring the Liverpool Philharmonic to the concert hall, and I heard all these operatic things there and classical music. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
I loved them.
What kind of shows were you seeing in Liverpool? I mean, talking about the cinema, I assume you went to the cinema and also to the theatre, maybe?
As kids we all went to the Saturday morning matinee.
Right.
And you got like 2 ounces of sweets or candy, and that was about your lot.
Yeah.
So there was all that about it.
Pantomimes.
People don't realise, but Liverpool was a lot of comedians came from Liverpool.
Yeah.
People like Ted Ray, Arthur Askey, people like that. And my father used to bring me to the Shakespeare Theatre. And it's so strange because whoever was on, there'd be a blackboard and easel with the names, and
so it was real musical.
It was real musical.
Yeah.
I never thought that years later I'd be playing at the Shakespeare.
How about that?
It was great.
Yeah.
I enjoyed playing there. But I went to St. George of England, and I'll be honest with you, I wasn't a good student. I didn't study, I couldn't apply myself. Unfortunately, I can only apply myself to things that I like.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's exactly as it should be.
I goofed off a lot, and I'll be honest with you, I used to cut school, and I used to go to Norris Green swimming baths. And my mother would write false notes for me that I was sick and stuff like that.
Oh, excellent.
That was it.
I had one of those mothers.
And then I was at the Church of England, and every year, at the end of every term, the headmaster was a guy called Mr. Fletcher, and he used to get up on the stage, and all the boys would get on the stage, and he'd say, if anybody here today says school days were the happiest days of their life, then they have failed in life. School days are just a preparation for latter years. And, when I was about to leave school, there wasn't enough room for everybody to get on the stage. And as he was, and I've been quite good in the last year or two, because I thought, I better, because I've got to find a job, and I was on the balcony, and just as Mr. Fletcher was going through the usual thing, this kid shouted out, "You bald-headed bastard." At Mr. Fletcher, and Mr. Fletcher said, "Get him out." And he pointed at me. And I got dragged out of the assembly hall, and I'll be honest with you, it was like, he was handing out the testimonials, and I was like, shit, what am I going to do?
Did Mr. Fletcher have it in for you before?
No, not at all, no. But I just grabbed my testimonial and left, and I looked around. But,
have you been back?
I went back, it was very strange. I went back when I had a hit record.
Oh, wonderful. And was he still there?
They invited me back, and the funny thing is, there used to be a pop magazine called Fabulous.
Yeah.
And when you were 21, they invited you to choose all the people you'd like in the magazine for that month, the photographs and stuff like that. And they interviewed Mr. Fletcher. And there was a picture of Mr. Fletcher with his bald head and that. And he said, "William Ashton passed through the school. We never even noticed him." And I was like, "You liar."
Oh my gosh, that's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
So, when did you leave then? How old were you when you left?
You believe it or not, I was 14.
Okay.
I was 14. I was 15 in the summer holidays.
And had to get a job, of course.
And my father told me
Yeah.
that's the way it was then. You have to get a job. And
He wasn't suggesting going into the music business.
No, not at all. No. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I was interested in carpentry, and I felt that I could be quite good at that. And my brother-in-law was a carpenter, and he said, "It's a dying trade, forget that." And I remember going for an interview for a job at this place as a carpenter, and I was like in a good stream, like the A stream or something like that, and this kid in the C stream was interviewed before me, and he comes out and goes, "Oh, I've got the job." And I thought, like, what have I been doing, So then a neighbour of ours, Brutal, worked for the railroad, and he got me an interview at Aintree. And I went there for an interview as a job as a boilermaker, and the guy who interviewed me said, "We have an opening here in engineering. I think that'd be better for you." I was very lucky, and I got a job for British Rail as an apprentice engineer.
Did you have an interest in that area at all?
None whatsoever. None whatsoever.
So,
None whatsoever.
it was the job for life, I guess.
To me, it was a job for life,
Yeah.
security, and that was it. And
Can you remember your first wage?
my first wrench, not quite, no. There was a lot of them. I know the wrenches, I mean...
No, not your first wrench, your first wage, your salary.
Well, I'll tell you what my salary was.
That would have been a surreal question, asking after your...
My salary, when I left there, I was 18 or 19, was £3, 17 shillings and 6pence. Yeah. And I used to start first thing in the morning.
And were you able to spend that though? Because we have to go back to that time and realise that's quite a bit of money for an 18 and 19-year-old. Or were you able to spend it quite easily?
Funny enough, there's a magazine you can buy now, and it tells you the spending power of what it was back then. It was quite good. I mean, there was like $3 or $4 to a pound. and things were a lot cheaper. Like a pint of beer was like 11 pence. You know, cigarettes were very cheap.
Yeah.
You know.
So you boilermakering.
I was an engineer.
Engineering, yeah, sorry. And were you still keeping the music side going with the?
I kept that going with Raymond Doherty.
Yeah.
And
you say keep it going. When were you playing? And how were you getting gigs?
We weren't getting gigs then. We were just playing in in each other's houses.
Okay.
And then opposite Ray was a kid in the same street called Tony Saunders, and he took up the drums, and the kid opposite where I lived, George Braithwaite, took up the bass, and we started a group. We started playing. And
the name of the band?
Pardon?
What was the name of the band?
You know, we changed it. It was like the Phantoms, the Coasters, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And then we.
Were you the front man?
No, I wasn't the front man. We asked my cousin Arthur, who we asked him would he join the band as well. And we used to rehearse. There was a club round the corner called the Oliver Club. It's still there. I was there last year. I took a look at the place after all these years. Still standing, you know. And we used to rehearse during the week. And then there was a man who was the chairman. His name was Charlie Phillips. How do I remember all these names? He said, you know, you guys got to do something. You got to pay us. You're using the electricity, and it was like just a couple of people, and there was empty, you know. It was a Legion Hall type thing, and we started playing there on a Saturday night for a pint of beer. That's how we got.
Yeah.
And
do you recall your first gig in front of people? Were you nervous? Were you a natural performer? I mean, did you?
No, I wasn't a natural. I just wanted to be a guitar player.
Oh, right.
I wanted to drink beer and play guitar behind somebody else. And you know, we tried different singers, and we got one guy, Bruce. He joined the band, and his father was well off, and he started getting his auditions, and then he decided that he was going to open his hairdressing salon because they had the money and ta-ra, you know.
Yeah,
and then
hairdressing salons were big in Liverpool at the time, weren't they? With a lot of people
who
wanted to go that route.
Yeah. So, you know, we were just still playing at the Oliver, and then we decided that, you know, the guys in the band decided, they said, Billy, your guitar playing is not progressing. You should try singing. Right. And I thought it was just going to be a novelty for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I had no intention. And the first gig we got was at a conservative hall in Green Lane, and I bought this Hofner guitar from Hesse's Music. So everybody went to Hesse's. Rushworth and Draper was the snob shop. And I put the guitar on the stand, and I did the first set. And I don't know why, but I was drinking beer and I forgot all about the guitar. And when I went to look for it in the dressing room after the second show, it was gone.
Huh.
And that was it. I couldn't afford another one.
It had gone where?
Somebody stole it.
It'd been nicked.
It had been nicked.
In Liverpool?
Yeah.
Surely not.
And you know, it's so funny because the last time I was here, we found this picture of John Lennon playing the same guitar.
Wonderful.
And the thing is, the Club 50s, there was like Club 40, 50 and 60. And the Club 40 only had one pickup, the Club 60 had two. But on all the pictures we found of John Lennon playing this Hofner acoustic guitar, his hand was over where the pickup was. So we couldn't prove that he nicked it or not, you know.
But all the evidence is there, yes.
I thought it was interesting, you know.
He fits the profile, certainly.
But that was it. I couldn't afford another one, and I was stuck with it.
So you're up front, and
I was up front. I thought, you know,
who's bringing the gigs in?
Pardon?
Who's bringing the gigs? Who's getting those concerts?
Well, what happened was we did an audition. We decided we'd do an audition. We got an audition at Aintree Institute, and we didn't have a truck, a van, anything. We we put all the equipment by the 61 bus stop, and the bus comes up and we threw all the conductor went berserk, but he let us keep the equipment on them. We took the gear to Aintree Institute, and I did an audition, and it was the first time I was to meet the Beatles.
Really?
I had seen the Beatles at Litherland Town Hall.
Oh yeah.
I'd seen them there, and I thought they were fantastic.
You did. It was that instant.
That instant, you know, it was. I remember all the guys used to sort of all go to Burton's for the suits back then. You know, everybody went to Burton's tailors, and everybody had these handkerchiefs and ties that matched, and they'd all stood around the perimeter of the dance hall. You know, that's the way it was. And for the first time ever, when the Beatles started playing, the crowd just went to the front of the stage.
Right.
And I was like, and I remember walking home and saying to a friend, they're going to be bigger than Elvis.
Wow.
And he said, you've been drinking too much.
So this is John, Paul, George and Pete, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah.
And then I did this audition and I met them for the first time.
What were your impressions of each of them?
Well, you know, they were, to me, you know, people talk about charisma. They were very charismatic, you know, instantly. And, you know, I don't know what, you know, people say what is appealing, it's something you can't put a finger on, you know.
I think the term X Factor, which has been bastardized by that bastard Simon Cowell,
Yeah.
I guess that X Factor is as close as you get.
Well, that's why I stopped watching it, because he's on it, you know.
There you go.
But you know, I mean.
I'm sorry, Simon.
But you know, I just thought that they were very charismatic and very interesting.
Yeah, you got on.
Pardon?
You got on.
I got on very well, always, yes.
Yeah, we are obviously
Yeah.
what developed from that. When did the manager come into your life? Because every band needs one, really.
Well, we did an audition at a club to get some club dates, and we met a man called Ted Nibs.
Ted Nibs. Yeah.
Ted Nibs. He was getting up in years, retired, but he took the band on and he took care of the bookings. You know, we then started to play at the Cavern, the Iron Door, Blair Hall. I used to play at the Majestic Ballroom in Birkenhead.
What would your set list be, or part of your set list?
I don't know, I hate to think. Well, you know, I mean, to me, it's like everybody copies when they start. So it was like whatever was popular at the time. You know, it was like Buddy Holly songs, Eddie Cochran songs, Roy Orbison songs, Rick Nelson songs, Fats Domino songs, anything that, you know, I wasn't a person that latched on to one person.
Right.
And, you know, had like now, like a tribute to Elvis Presley, or a tribute to the Beatles, or a tribute to the Rolling Stones, or, you know, everything's a tribute now, you know.
Were you giving your own take to these songs? Did you develop that far at this stage?
I think in the beginning, you know, you try to put certain inflections, but after a while you start to find your own way, you know, which I did.
Because certainly by the time I heard you for the first time, you were what I still consider to be one of those voices of the 60s that is instantly recognisable for all the right reasons.
You think so?
I know so. And I'll throw it out to you lot. Yeah. Definitely. Right. So, Ted Nibs, a good guy, management-wise?
He was a great guy, and he was, I think, you know, he was very good. You know, he got on very well with all the promoters. And, you know, he got on well with Brian Epstein and all the other people that were around at the time. You know, and it was a great period. I mean, I was doing gigs like 5-6 nights a week.
Yeah, I was going to say, could you tell us a little about the Mersey music scene at that time? Because things have changed since Skiffle. We're now in the 60s, I'm guessing, early 60s.
And there was a lot of bands, but, you know, I mean, I was coming home from work at the railroad and throwing something down to eat quickly and getting washed out. It was a very dirty job, but I used to have to get cleaned up and load the truck, and we started off, you know, it was amazing because we started off with the cheapest instruments, nothing, and we ended up with the best. Just being semi-professional, we ended up with our own truck. You know, we were doing very well.
Who, and this is under Ted's guidance?
Under Ted's guidance,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, and he handled the finance and all that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. From there, I mean, you told us about when you became aware of the Beatles. What would you describe as your big break then? Where you suddenly, you're not just somebody on playing the clubs here and there, something happens. What would that be?
Well, obviously, I mean, there was a lot going on. I mean, I was doing shows, you know, like the Tower Ballroom with the Beatles and about 40 other bands. And there was like Jerry Lee Lewis, Little Richard, Joe Brown.
What were the audiences like for that?
They were great.
Because it's pre-Beatlemania, obviously, but something's happening. You recognised it, and now you're up there with.
And what, you know, I got this reputation because, I mean, I was talking about it the other day. I went out and I thought, well, I've got to be a singer. And I went to Eric the Tailor's and got this gold army suit. You know.
Eric the Tailor's.
Eric the Tailor.
Where did he look?
And he made my first gold army suit, and I had pink and black army and red and stuff like that. So I think the girls liked it, and
So
young people.
What was the inspiration there? I mean, was it Elvis's? Because I can picture him in a gold suit.
You know, I was very aware of Elvis Presley's abilities. You know, because I think not enough people credit Elvis Presley for being a great singer, which he was. He was a fantastic singer, and but I wasn't like totally into everything. You know, I liked a bit of everybody. You know,
Yeah.
I always try to put a lot of different variety into the set list. You know, whenever I could. And the amazing thing is, I'll be honest with you, you know, I never, as a kid, dreamed that these people that I idolized as a kid, that I'd actually meet and work with. You know, it will stay with me forever.
I'm sure. So that big break, what would it be at that time that lifts you from the crowd, as it were, who are you know, the 300 other bands that are playing in Liverpool?
I think it was the popularity poll in Merseybeat.
Oh right, so Bill Harry played a big part in it.
Bill Harry,
Yeah.
and I came very high in the poll, and I think that's when, you know, I know John Lennon had said to Brian Epstein, you should check out that kid Billy Kramer, because I've done quite a few gigs with them, and you know, the popularity poll was at the Majestic Ballroom, and we all had to get up and do a few songs, and Brian was giving away a tour of Scotland for whoever came the highest and was non-professional, and I had to turn it down because I have a job with British Rail. But that was a big break for me.
Yeah. Your memories of Brian?
Brian was you know, he was a class act. You know, Brian was like, to me, you know, Brian was, how can I describe it today? You know, he wasn't trendy, you know, and he didn't dress trendy, but you could tell that he was very well put together in his dress and his cufflinks and his tie. You know, he was a, you know, very cool, you know.
And were you aware that you were getting a following across Liverpool?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my
Same
fan
faces,
club
yeah.
secretary just walked in a minute ago.
Oh right.
I don't know where she is now, but she's here. Yeah.
Well, that's something.
So I was getting a good following, you know.
Yeah.
And I was enjoying it.
So how did it come about that Brian took you on? Lennon sort of suggests to Brian, take a look. Then what happens?
Well, I did well in the popularity poll, and then I was working for British Rail. I was, quite frankly, I wasn't going to night school like I should have been doing, and I was skipping it, and I was making more money singing around the clubs than what I was for British Rail. And I knew I had to come to a decision. It had to be one thing or the other, because I was going into work and I was going and hiding places. I was going and hiding and stuff like that. And I knew. And then I got this letter in my wage packet which said find accommodation in Crewe. And I thought, what am I going to do? And I more or less had said to the guys, I'm going to have to finish with this. And I was all set to go to Crewe for a year. It was part of the training. And I made an appointment to see the boss, Mr. Walker. And I said to him, you know, my parents are getting on in life. I'm the youngest, and I want to be around them, you know, they need someone around. And he told me, grow up and face the world. One of these days you might get called up in the service. You either go to Crewe or you know the alternative. So I was on the way out, you know. And then I came into Liverpool with Ted one Saturday, and we went to a restaurant, and Brian Epstein was there, and Ted said, well, Billy, I've done all I can for you. Brian would like to manage you.
Ah.
And that was a start.
Well, that's incredibly decent, isn't it? Yeah. What happened next? I mean, first record, I guess, first single?
No, I had a meeting with Brian. I discussed it with the guys in the band. They were...
Now the band was the Coasters?
Yes, and they were good guys, you know, but they didn't want to turn professional, they had other professions. So Brian said, well, I'll take you, but not the band, you know, it was one of them things. And then he'd been using the Dakotas, who were a Manchester band.
Were you aware of them?
I'd seen them, I've worked on shows with them.
Right.
You know, when artists were in the charts from London, they would come up and they would get the backing jobs. And Brian obviously knew that they were good musicians. And I met them at his office, and he said, go down to Cavern and have a rehearsal, see what you think. And I went to the Cavern, and John and Paul were there, and they said it sounds really cool. And then we discussed terms, and Brian did a deal. The deal was I had to put away the Christmas tree, that was the close. They didn't like that. And you know, they would get a record deal and I would get a record deal, and that was it.
Yeah, that was kind of a unique thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But they did have a real sound of their own, the Dakotas, didn't they?
They had a sound of their own.
You didn't mistake them for the Shadows.
No. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, they were very good musicians.
Yeah.
They, you know, other people use studio guys and everything, but I mean, they would go in the studio and knock anything together very quickly. They were really on the ball, musically.
And obviously, you're going to be together with them for quite a while now. You all got on okay?
It was strange being a Scouser with a load of Mancunians.
Right.
There was definitely, you know, I've got to be honest with you, there was definitely a rivalry there. You know, and you know, I mean, I don't really like to talk about that because, you know.
Then we won't.
Okay.
Or will we? Yes.
We can talk about it. You know, I mean, it became very apparent to me, you know, that Brian sent us to Hamburg to work together and get it together, and it was like pulling teeth trying to get them to rehearse. And I said to Brian, you should call it The Dakotas with Vocal Interludes by Billy J Kramer, because that's how it felt to me. And obviously then, you know, that changed. So move on then.
No, well, actually, I'd like to keep you in Hamburg. What was your take on Hamburg?
To me, it was like, I was in shock.
Sure. As a brutal boy.
As a brutal boy,
Yeah.
I was in shock because, I'll be honest with you, it was like, I thought it was a den of iniquity. You know, I mean, it was, you know, rock and roll.
Now, was that a good thing or a bad thing?
It was a bad thing, you know, I mean, and, you know, there was like, you walk down that street there and there's all women sat in the window, and it was like, and, you know, it was long hours.
Yeah.
You know, you'd sing for an hour and then you get a half hour off and you go, and so it was like drinking and playing the whole time.
Right.
And, but you know, I was very fortunate that I hooked up with Gene Vincent while I was there, you know, and that made me drink even more. But it was interesting, but I mean, I never felt comfortable there, I've got to be very honest.
Right. So you return home. How did the first single come about?
Well, just before we went, yeah, it was. I remember it was like the worst winter in many years.
63.
And I remember, like, I got up in the loft where we lived in Bootle because the tank had frozen over.
Mm-hmm.
And I put my foot through the ceiling. Father never forgave me, you know. And I went to Hamburg, and it was, the weather was good there, but towards the end it started snowing, and I thought, God, I'm glad to get back to England. When I came back to England, it was still terrible.
Yeah.
And Brian had given me a tape of John Lennon singing the song, Do You Want to Know a Secret? And I rehearsed the song with the Dakotas, and we started playing it.
Well, that's kind of interesting. So it was John singing rather than George.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've never heard it. You know, people. I'll be honest with you. People say to me, "What was the demo like?"
Yeah.
And it wasn't really a demo. It was just an acoustic guitar with no arrangement. You know, the guitar thing at the beginning, I thought of on the record I made. You know, and to me, there was no great response to the song. You know, and when I
From yourself, you mean?
from the audiences,
Okay.
you know, people didn't react to it.
Ah.
You know, and
Yeah, it was produced by
George Martin, yeah. And I'll be honest with you, you know, I mean, while I was in Hamburg, the great thing was I'd seen like the Beatles had the record "Love Me Do," which I thought I didn't like it, you know, because I'd heard the Beatles doing like "Slow Down" and "Money," you know, all these songs, and I thought it was a bit tame for them. But when I was going back to the Majestic Ballroom, it was the first time I heard them please me live, and I thought that's gonna go. And while I was in Germany, I think we were to #1, and I came back and I did tests with various companies, you know, and I failed due to the fact that we weren't rehearsed well enough.
Right.
And then when I did it with George Martin, I was very surprised when I got a call a week or two later, and Brian said George wants a release. Do you want to know a secret? And I said, does that mean we have a recording contract? He says, we have a 5-year deal with EMI. And I said, don't you think we should find a good song?
And what did Brian say?
He said, George Martin is very happy with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's released, and
Well, but even before then, I went to London, believe it or not, and did some more work on it. And I'd been to the information booth at the airport, and this woman had written me all the instructions how to get to St. John's Wood. And I finished the record, and they gave me an acetate. And when I went back to the airport that night, I gave the acetate away to the woman at the information booth. She said, how'd you get on today? I said, you know, they liked it, I wasn't too keen on it. Give it to your daughters. And I gave the acetate away.
yeah. Oh, Billy. It should be upstairs here.
It should be upstairs, yes.
So it took off.
But
It did take off that.
It
single,
shocked
didn't
me,
it?
you know,
Yeah,
and
yeah. What was the feeling? And when did you realise, Marielle, maybe I wasn't right about this? When did you suddenly realise, you know what, it's happening?
when I realised it was happening was I went to Manchester and I did a TV show in Manchester, and they had me pushing these filing cabinets over and throwing files all around the studio because the Profumo trial was going on at the time with the politicians, with young puppets. It was all over the place, and it was like, do you want to know a secret? And I came back to Liverpool, and I'm at the bottom of Hackney Drive to see these crowd of kids outside the front door. And my life changed overnight.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, how did you? Were you still at home, living at home?
I was still living at home with my parents.
Yeah. How did your family take to this change in your prospects? And how did they take to you quitting the job for life?
My father was very supportive.
Was he?
You know, I mean, I mean, he was a tough guy, my father. You know, and he wasn't very. He didn't encourage me a lot. So you know, we came to gigs and things like that. But he just said to me, you know, if you don't take this chance, you may end up living with regrets.
Yeah.
So that was a great thing to say.
So thinking back, how did life change once you were up there?
Well, I could.
That year, 63.
How did it change? I was able to do a lot of things that I hadn't been able to do in the past. I was able to buy nice clothes. I was able to take care of my parents. It was exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're hitting the TV screens a lot.
Yeah.
Ready, Steady, Go.
Yeah.
Thank You, Lucky Stars.
Yeah.
All these beautiful old shows.
Yeah.
What was that like? I mean, because it's quite something to stand in front of cameras for the first time, isn't it? Or do you just see it as, you know, it's an audience?
I'll be honest with you. I was a very shy person.
Really?
I was very shy. I was very unassuming. I was very nervous. I still get nervous now. You know.
That makes it even stranger, doesn't it, that you choose that lifestyle?
Well, you know, I was pushed into it. You know.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. You know, it takes a while. You know, a while to read. You know, when you play a guitar, to me, you've got something to hide behind. When you're just a singer, you know, you have to learn different moves and how to project, how to present yourself, and it takes time, you know. I mean, you know, somebody said to me a few years ago, when did you realize you were any good? And I said, I'd finished a tour with Jerry and the Pacemakers at the London Palladium, and I was on stage there, and I was 52, and I thought, shit, I must know what I'm doing right now.
So at 52, yes. But back to 63, what was it like touring again on the circuit? Because it's all these shows with the Beatles, with other bands.
The first one,
Touring must be very difficult at that point. There's no motorways, are there?
There was no motorways, there was no transport cars.
The snow.
There was snow, but there was nowhere. I mean, when I did the tours with the Beatles, we did weeks in every town. Like you were talking about seeing me in Southport, we did a week there. We did a week at Bournemouth, Margate, and the first week, funny enough, was in Margate.
Right.
And it was just trying to get out the hotel. There was more people at the hotel than was at the theatre. There was screaming kids everywhere. It was like, that was it every day.
How was your ego coping with this?
It wasn't good, I'll be honest with you. I started to drink a lot.
Yeah.
You know, it was a lot of pressure. I was a young kid and inexperienced.
Yeah.
You know.
And then it gets bigger because suddenly America beckons.
Well,
How did that come about? Was it Ed Sullivan at the same route or what? What was your first time?
well, you know, I did the things with the Beatles, and you know, then when I was in Bournemouth, John Lennon gave me the song "Bad to Me," which was another story. I was in Bournemouth, and it was my 20th birthday. And what a gift, you know, to get that on your 20th birthday. He said, "We've just entered the charts in America, and I've written a song for you, by the way."
And that's fun.
And it was bad to me. And he said, "Next time you're at Abbey Road, I'll come there and play it for you."
I guess that means you must have been 19 when you were doing Do You Want to Know a Secret?
I was 19 when I did You Want to Know a Secret, and I was 20 when I did Bad to
I
Me.
mean, how amazing is that to you now, looking back? You know, that's so young.
It's just,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, yeah, you know, it wasn't taking it for granted, but I mean, I wasn't like in awe of the Beatles like everybody is.
Yeah.
Because to me, we travelled together, we shared dressing rooms. You know, Paul McCartney would come in and say, "Can I borrow your hairbrush?" You know, and he used to use pancake makeup, and if you got any slap Billy. It was.
The shows at that time were, in some ways, old-time musical. They were actually doing sketches within the shows at some point. In fact, the Southport one, they came on and did this weirdo sketch.
Well,
And they had a compere who was very old-time musical.
well, I used to feel sorry for the compares because, you know,
We want the Beatles, we want the Beatles.
we want the Beatles, we want the Beatles. You know, I remember doing this one show, and this comic came run off me, but I feel funny, and John Lennon says, "Well, you better get back on before it wears off."
Wonderful.
You know, you know, but I felt sorry for the compers because the Beatles had told everybody they like jelly beans, and the compere would be getting jelly beans thrown at them, and a lot of abuse.
Yeah, yeah. So To America.
America.
Well, yeah. First, I mean, what was that like what was a kid from Bootle?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I went to America firstly with Brian Epstein, and we did this promotional tour. And I think he was talking with the Ed Sullivan people. And we had this suite at the Wall of Astoria, and they bring people in, and we had the Beatles, all the clips from newspapers and the photographs and things. And it wasn't the warmest of receptions. And you know, I always felt it was going to take something special. And I thought the Beatles were the key to it, you know, because Cliff Richard had been to America and failed, you know, in 1958. And rock and roll to me was fading a bit at this time. I think, you know, like Tiny Kangaroo Down Sport was #1 on the charts when I was there. You know, so it was a bit dismal, and it took the Beatles to me. They revived rock and roll and brought it back.
Yeah, that was obvious from January '60.
And you know, I came over and I did that, and then the Beatles did the Ed Sullivan show, and it opened the doors for everybody. And then I came over and I did Ed Sullivan, Hullabaloo, Shindy, and I did the famous Tammy movie, California, and it was interesting.
I'm there.
It was interesting, you know, we're doing gigs and we'd drive a coach into the place and get out the coach and it'd be at, you know, these big gigs with Sonny and Cher and people like that.
Yeah. Well, it's the glamour at that point of America.
Yes.
Slightly tarnished in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But you know, it's still America, which is this extraordinary thing.
All right.
You know, and again, as a 20-year-old, that must have really had impact on you.
Well, I did Ed Sullivan, and I appeared at the Wells Fair for a week, and it was like all these modern things. You know,
Yeah.
it was the first time I saw a microwave, and, you know.
Yeah, boy.
And they had that ride through time where it started off with somebody with a pump in the back garden for water, and as the theatres moved around till it's luxury up-to-date modern thing. It was interesting.
So over the next few years, I mean, you're having hit after hit after hit. You're traveling the world.
Yes.
And then the music scene starts to change around about '67. You know, as we go into psychedelia and how did that feel to you? What was your impressions of? And were you aware of the times they were changing?
I honestly think that I was unaware because I didn't change and I didn't adapt. I carried on making records, but I never thought about what was hip and what was trendy. It was like I was, oh well, I like this, I'm going to do it. You know, and
well, it was moving fast, wasn't it?
It was smooth. You know, I mean, I remember the flower power thing. You know.
Yeah. Did you?
Oh yeah. Well, I had this like yellow. I remember having this yellow caftan and beads around my neck, and I was doing this gig, and there's all these girls screaming at the front, and a guy walks on the stage and pours a pint of beer over my head.
Where was this?
It was outside London, and I go, why did you do that? And he went, I didn't want it.
Well, there's a lovely moment in your career. Yes. The times continue to change as the '60s progress into the '70s. Suddenly, it's glam rock.
Yeah.
I mean, where are you at that point?
At that point, I sort of like what happened was, I was finishing with AMI, you know, and I wasn't happy. You know, I was getting to a point where I wanted to sort of do my own things.
Which would have been what?
Well, it started with Little Children, you know, because I'd done Sunday nights at the London Palladium, and I was a disaster. I wasn't good. And I thought the next record has to be something special. So I did the rounds of all the music publishers in London, and I went to a place called Ryan Sussex, and I was staying at this thatched cottage, drinking a lot and playing these acetates. So I got up one day and I put on this demo of Little Children, and it was just more Schumann on piano and him singing. Not very good, but I just thought this is a number one hit. And, you know, I just didn't know how to present this to Brian Epstein, you know, because he'd done so much for me. And I'll be honest with you, the Beatles offered me like 4 songs, and I prompt for little children. The songs they offered me, John Lennon even said, would have been a disaster, you know. But at the time, you know, it was tough being a young kid like that and having to stand up for your rights, you know.
Yeah.
And George Martin wasn't keen on little children, and he wasn't, Brian wasn't, and the publishers weren't, because they weren't getting the publishing money. But I said, this is what I want to do. It was the only record, believe it or not, apart, like, do you want to know a secret I did live? But Bed to Me, I'll Keep You Satisfied, From a Window, I Call Your Name, all them songs, I never heard them till the day of the session. I had to learn them on the day and record them in 3 hours, an A and a B side, you know, and which was that was a lot of pressure. Little Children was the only record I ever rehearsed, and when it came out, it wasn't selling well. Unfortunately for me, I did a video with other young kids in the playground, and it started to snow, and everybody said, "Isn't that lovely?" And it actually, at the time, the Beatles had sold 68,000 a day. Little Children sold 78,000, and went to number 1.
And did George Martin and Brian recognise, you know, their mistake?
Well, you know, it created a rift, not a bad rift, between Brian and I, because Brian, there was somebody wanting to get on the Epstein bandwagon, who worked for a big magazine, who I was friends with, I thought, who told Brian, you know, Billy had that song up his sleeve a long time ago, and it caused a bit of a rift for a while.
Well, and then Brian died, of course.
And then no, what happened was, my contract with EMI ran out, and I was going to record for the NEMS label.
Right.
And I recorded, my first single was 1941, which was a Harry Nilsson song before anybody had ever heard of Harry Nilsson. And then I recorded a song called Town of Tuxley Toymaker with Robert Stigwood, who produced the Bee Gees. You know, they were to me were totally different records that I'd done in the past. And unfortunately, Brian died at that point.
Right.
And my recording career just went out the window.
Oh, really?
I felt so, yes.
So 67, so as I said, the times were changing in so many ways,
yes.
And continued to then through into the 70s. So by the time of punk, where's Billy J Kramer?
Yeah, I got married.
Right.
I got married, that was one thing. And I was
To who?
A girl who worked at the BBC, her name was Anne again.
Right.
I married Anne. And I moved to Rugby, out of London. It was a quiet town. Nobody bothered me, and I was quite happy with that, you know. I really was, because I'm still a quiet person, you know. I always say there's more to life than rock and roll.
Sure.
But what it is, I haven't found it yet. You know,
but music's still there with you.
Music's still there, and I was doing a TV show for kids. The idea was to show young kids what it was like in a disco, and I'll be honest with you, that was a lot of pressure, because if the show was slow, I had to speed it up. If the show was fast, I had to slow it down. Right. So I had to learn a tremendous amount of songs.
You said disco.
Yes.
I missed that.
Well, I'm glad you did. So that was, you know, I was doing that, and then I did things like pantomime.
Yeah.
You know.
So acting on stage.
Acting, I've never done that before.
Yeah.
You know, I had to go on stage and learn a part and be a.
Who were you playing? What were you playing?
I'd be a duke or somebody like that.
Yeah.
Some aristocratic
Yes.
part, and I was doing dancing with girls and stuff like that. So that was interesting. And I was doing like nightclubs became very popular,
Yeah.
and there was like a circuit called the Bailey Circuit, which I do a week in each town.
Yeah.
So I was doing that kind of thing.
Okay. And were you happy?
I can't remember.
Okay.
Was I happy? Are we ever happy all the time? I don't think so. No.
Yeah, a ridiculous question. I know. Can I talk to you about love? Love, if you don't mind.
No.
What has love played? How has love played in your life?
How has it played in my life?
Yeah.
Well, that's a tough subject.
It is, and I don't mean to pry, but I'm not for a...
It's like, I'll be honest with you, you get married and you're in love with somebody, and you never think that down the road you're going to be fighting each other and go through a divorce. That wasn't a pleasant part of my life, I can assure you. I was old school, I thought this is going to last forever. But it did, and it got nasty and awful, and, I'm only human. Only human. It's not, it's like, I don't know, human beings are the weirdest animal when you think about it, but I'll be honest with you, it was a good marriage. I had a good first marriage, and I accept a lot of the blame, because to me, I was like, still acting like I was single. I was drinking my head off and partying and all the rest of it. So, my first wife didn't have a happy time with me.
Right. Second wife?
Second wife I love very dearly. I had a good marriage with her. I did a lot of great things, a lot of different stuff. Unfortunately, she passed. I have a partner now, Rose, who's been a godsend to me. I was talking about a little before. It's like I love my dogs.
Yeah.
More than people.
Yeah. I do know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is the time to say, does everybody realise it's actually International Dog Day? We think it's time to take a reasonably short break, and we're going to come back, finish this with just bringing Billy's career up to date and indeed into the future, and then we're going to throw questions open to you beautiful people in the audience. So please have a think of the questions I hope you have to come up with, and enjoy the break. And something exciting is going to happen. There's going to be an unveiling somewhere. Somebody will come on and explain more about that in a minute. But for the moment, can I say please again, take this beautiful roof off for the wonderful Billy J Kramer.
But a lot of that, we could have gone into more detail, but we wouldn't have been able to get as much in.
We'll get a bit more detail in.
We'll get a bit more in a minute, but I'd like to welcome on stage somebody who's worked on doing a bust of me, which we're going to unveil. Andy, where are you?
Andy Edwards. Hello, Andy. Nice to see you. Good to see you.
Hello, Andy. How are you? Have anything to say?
I'm very well, thank you. How proud of you all, Billy. Fancy me sharing the stage with this legend.
Know what you have to say?
So, feeling as we do about Billy, we thought, we as fans, it was about time that there was something permanent to acknowledge the man's genius and how proud we are of him. So, over the last few months, starting with some settings that Billy was kind enough to grant us, sitting at that bar there, I had a go at sculpting a bust of him, and it's a start, and we're looking for something permanent in the setting, and what we'd like to unveil now is where we've got to with that, and I hope he captures something of the man I've come to know and the warmth of his character. So shall we call it Clever?
That is, well, Billy, what do you think?
He's an ugly bugger.
Andy, that is absolute a joy, and
Thank you so much.
I mean, I think, you know, for people from far away who might not be aware of your presence in the city, which is kind of huge, could you fill them in just a little on the most obvious?
Yeah, well, 10 years ago, we just got sick of people saying, "Where's the Beatles statue?" and having to say, "There isn't one." So we decided we'd make one. And thankfully, with the backing of the Cavern Club and the people of Liverpool and the City of Liverpool City Council, in January 2015, we unveiled the statue of the waterfront. And I'm glad to say it continues to bring a lot of people together. It's become a meeting place and people to make friends with. And I'd like this to be the same for Billy, because it's an important part of the musical history of this city.
It is indeed a focal point of the city, as any of you, and I'm sure everybody has been down to the pier head. And if you're there at 8 o'clock in the morning, there's people queuing up to get pictures with that beautiful statue, as I'm sure there will be with this glorious head of yourself.
I think cover it up.
It's a piece of art, without a doubt.
It's wonderful.
Wonderful, Andy. Thank you.
Andy, thank you so much. It's unbelievable, and I'm very taken by it. Thank you so much. You're a great guy and a wonderful artist.
Right, Billy. Now I want to bring you up to the present, but I can't do that because I was collared by several people from the audience who will remain nameless, who pointed out that oi, you missed out asking him how the heck did he get his name, and I think it is an important story. So if we could brush back to that first.
What happened?
You were born.
I was born William Howard Ashton. And all the guys in the band said, "You're going to have a stage name." And they thought of like 12 names. They called up this telephone operator and said, "Which do you like the best?" And she said, "Billy Kramer." Just before I was to release "Do You Want to Know a Secret?", Brian Epstein called me into his office. John Lennon was there. And he said, "John, as a suggestion." I said, "What is it?" He said, "Why don't you add a J to your name? It'll give it more rock and rolly, and it'll catch on with the public." That's how it came about.
So the J doesn't stand for anything?
Well, the other thing is, funny enough, I didn't know at the time that John was married and had a son. And I said, "What shall I say?" People ask me what the J stands for. He says, "Julian." I said, "Well, I'll take the J, but I don't like the name Julian."
J it is.
Yeah.
J it is. You've lived in the States for a long, long time.
Yes.
Why?
No,
I don't mean that in a nasty way, because I love the States too. Hey,
in the nicest way, and I don't want to come off as being a big head or a bossy, but
go on.
But it was very difficult for me when Brian Epstein died, and it was difficult because I was in a situation where the people in London weren't very kind. People at the BBC were like, "What are you going to do when this all wears off?"
When the bubble bursts.
And I was in a situation where I was making records, and I was financing them myself. I was producing them. It was costing a lot of money, and I couldn't get the records played and stuff like that, because of the playlist at the BBC. I didn't have the clout behind the records. I've made about 18 other singles that the public have never been really turned on to. And I got to a point where I was doing tours, and it was enjoyable, and I could have been a very rich man if I had continued. But I thought to myself, there's more to my life than singing a handful of songs that I did back then. And I wanted to move forward, maybe not, not hit records, but I wanted to carry on making records. I wanted to sing different songs. I always sing the songs that were successful for me. It's all part of the game. That's what people want, it's what made me. But I just thought there's more to me than just 6 or 7 songs, and that was it. Sorry.
So America.
So I went to America, and I was also, it's like I was doing these tours, these Arthur House package tours, with about 6 other acts on, and I was just walking on and going through the motions, and it was like I'd forgotten how to sing "Bad to Me." It got that bad, and I just thought, I want to do other things and see other places. And I'll be honest with you, things weren't going great for me here. My reputation wasn't great because I was drinking a lot and partying and not doing the right things. And quite frankly, people did turn their back on me a bit, and I don't blame them. I was very lucky that I went to America. I stopped drinking, I got myself together. I haven't had a drink in 40 years or any drugs. And I just wanted to be a functioning, good human being, which I hope I've become.
Right. Your place in America. So, what is your home in America? How do you feel about your home in America?
Well,
and being part American now, I guess.
I lived in New York for many years, and then my wife passed, and I have a new partner now, and I moved to Chicago, from Chicago, and it's a great city. I really like it, and that's it. It's home. We live in a townhouse, and life is good.
Oh, that's beautiful to hear. Here we are in the 21st century. What are you doing?
What am I doing? Well, over the years, I continued to sort of. One of the things what happened to me, what was created a big change in my life was I was on a plane funny enough. I'd done a tour in England with Jerry and Peter and people like that, and I was flying back to the United States, and I was reading the Times, and they were talking about this cover-up in Roswell, a place called Roswell, where the people said a flying saucer landed there or crashed, and the American government had done a cover-up job, and it's. So I read about Roswell. It was like the 50th anniversary or something, and I said, I'm going to be there in a few weeks' time. So I go to Roswell, which is in New Mexico, and it was like a Star Wars convention. The hotel was just like full. Everywhere was jammed, and there was aliens walking around. It was very weird.
That's America.
So I was doing a gig with a guy called Mitch Ryder and Gary Lewis, and Mitch Ryder went on stage, and out there it's the desert and it never rains, but this day it did rain, and I never I never even went on stage there. They cancelled the whole show, and so that was it. I get up the next day in the hotel, and it's like a ghost town overnight. And somebody had said to me, a friend on Long Island, New York, you should check out Santa Fe. So I went to Santa Fe, and quite honestly, I fell in love with the place. I really, the architecture and the culture, and I was very into that. And I started, like, anytime I had any free time, I would go to Santa Fe and hang out. To me, it was definitely the land of enchantment. And then I went back to New York one day, and I said to my wife at the time, I said, I haven't played the guitar for many years. I want to start playing again. She said, I bought you one 20 years ago and you never played it. I said, well, I hate to tell you, but it was a piece of junk. Anyway, I hadn't been in a music shop for years. And I went to this music shop, Sam Ash, and I bought this acoustic guitar. And I went home and I sat down and I wrote a song to get Brian Epstein into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You know, because I thought that Brian had been given a cold shoulder by everybody. I thought people had forgotten about him. And to me, Brian Epstein, you know, discovered the Beatles and all of us, and to me gave so much pleasure to the world. And I thought it was wrong that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame hadn't given what he deserved. And I wrote this song, Liverpool with Love. And apparently it did register in the right circles, and Brian got into the Hall of Fame. And at the same time, I wrote a song called Sunsets of Santa Fe, and I just thought that's going to be it. And then I got in this collaboration with a guy from Long Island called Don Salenza, and we just started, anytime I was not working, we'd get together. And I ended up where I had like 9 songs. And I was with him one day and I said, you know, Don, we have these songs, but we don't have anything to tie it together. And I wrote a song called I Won the Fight, which I felt, you know, I have won the fight. I've got rid of a lot of the crap that's going on in my head. I don't drink anymore, and I do the right things. And I wrote this song, I Won the Fight, and I put out this CD, I Won the Fight. I don't know whether anybody here heard it or not, but in circles in the States it was very well received. And that enabled me to go on tour in America. I did 2 British Invasion tours on the strength of that. And then I came back to the UK and did 46 concerts here.
Did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed it, you know, but it was a pleasure. I really had a great time. I've been back to Liverpool over the years, you know, and
what do you make of Liverpool now?
what do I like about Liverpool?
What do you make of it? You know, it's slightly different to how it was in the 40s, 50s.
You know, I think it's changed a lot. I think that, you know, I can't really go into detail. I think it took a long time for them to acknowledge what a great thing the Beatles had done for the city.
And the rest of you.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, I remember coming to Liverpool and sitting on a bench down the road there, and there was just a plaque on the wall saying 4 Lads That Rock the World.
Yeah.
And I was saying to myself, you know, if this is in America, this place will be jumping, you know.
Yeah.
But it's doing what it should. I'm chuffed to see, you know, what's going on.
Well, look where you're sitting, you know.
Yeah,
In this place.
look really nice piece of there. So, you know, that was I Won the Fight, and I've carried on doing shows, gigs and things.
How do we find out what you're doing, where you are, where you're at, how we get your music? And, there's a merchandise stand somewhere, I believe, here.
It's BillyJKramer.com.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is Rose.
Thank you, Rose.
You can tell I can't see.
You think I can? Hang on. Respects.
So, you know, I went back to Abbey Road last August. Some people from a big computer company decided that they'd put a stake in the ground, and I had a party at Abbey Road to celebrate my 80th birthday. I did a show in Studio 2, and I recorded this new album called Are You With Me? I've had a couple of singles out on it. Are You With Me? And I couldn't have done it without you, which is a tribute to Brian Epstein and George Martin and everybody that's helped me over the years. And that's
well, there's a beautiful picture of the album cover here, which is worth getting just for that. And you can find it. Get your pens out. Go to BillyJKramermusic.com. It's as easy as that. BillyJKramermusic.com, or there's an alternative, Billy@brutalmusic.com. Now you gotta love that.
Good music. And, you know, can you do me a favor? I have a song out now, which is written by a guy called Jeff Perholtz, who co-produced the album. And he wrote this song for Rose. It's called My Sweet Rose. And it's just coming to the Heritage chart, number 28. If you vote for it, we're going to try and get it to number 1. The Heritage, vote for it if you will. I really appreciate it. So that's what I'm up to now.
And the future coming up, how far are you looking ahead?
I'll be honest with you, I like what we've done today. You know, I still like to perform, and I like to sing, and I do similar things as this. You know, I call it Secrets to Stories, where we play guitars and sing the old songs and stuff. So we'll see what happens.
Well, I look forward to seeing what happens, and can I just say how much I've enjoyed doing this today. My one regret is that we don't have 6 weeks to sit here and chat.
Well, thank you. I'll tell you, I've really enjoyed it. It's been a real pleasure, and thank you so much for being here.
Billy J Kramer, everyone. Can I just quickly thank Rogue for being sick today? Sorry, Rogue. I feel my ambassadorship is about to be revoked. Thank you all. You are a beautiful audience. I'm looking at. Remember that phrase, beautiful people?
Yeah, you are.
Melanie Safka did a song called Beautiful People. And I'm looking at them now, and it's great to see on this planet the beautiful people again. Thank
So
you.
we're going to take some questions.
Whoa, now of course we're going to take some questions from you lot. Now this is where it gets extremely good. So now there's somebody